It's Carter Man. It is Sunday, and I'm going to give you a little warning right at the outset. I'm going to get a little preachy with you. I guess it's because it's Sunday. The Lord's Day, as my father used to say, as a Methodist minister. Right now, let me put some context here. Right now, the United States is in desperate trouble. We know that. We've talked about it. And as the president of ConservativeRightsPact.com, I pull no punches about it, okay? I'm not with the inside the Washington Beltway conservative ink types who try to gloss it over or talk around the periphery or have these little issues they play with that are not without getting down to the sheep's nut. The problem is we're in the midst of a fascist takeover, and every conservative organization in Washington ought to be saying that. They're not. In a minute, I'm going to talk about what we do about that. And they ought to be saying it outright. But that's where we are. We're in the midst of a fascist takeover. They are jailing pro-life protesters all across the country. Mary Garland, the most corrupt attorney general in history, has weaponized the law to go after anyone who disagrees with the Biden regime narrative. Okay, dictates. We have still more than 100 people in the Gulag, the American Gulag. The protesters at the Capitol, there was no insurrection. That's a lie. Still in the Gulag, being sentenced to draconian sentences, cruel and unusual punishment. That's fascist takeover. We have a Secretary of Education who is forcing perverts into the little girls' rooms in our schools and porno into the school libraries. Okay, that's that kind of destruction of the educational system is traditional fascism. Okay, check it out. What Hitler and Mussolini did when they took over. And yeah, I'm going to say their names, Hitler and Mussolini, because we are in a Hitlerian Mussolini type takeover now. We have a country where the President of the United States, I consider Trump the president, since they stole the election from him. And if you say that, by the way, you can be jailed, which you're trying to do down in Georgia now, or stripped of your legal credentials, which they've done to some of Trump's lawyers, or threatened them that. And, that's fascism. It's a fascist takeover. And in fascism, the big companies cooperate. Can't get much bigger cooperation than they got from Big Pharma, can you? Or the big box stores when they started all the dictates back during the plague. I can't go into that because, of course, then you'll never get to see this video. The censorship of free speech. It's fascism. So that's where we are. We're in the midst of a fascist takeover. And when I finish up here, I'm going to tell you 3 of the ways we need to fight back. And we are fighting back at ConservativeRightsPact.com. Come on and join us. But I want to give you some hope, okay? And this hope tells me why I think we're going to be successful in fighting back, okay? We're all going to have to join in it, but we're going to be successful. And it goes back to the Bible. I said I was going to preach it. Just get ready. Get ready. I expect to hear some amens out there. In the book of Corinthians, Paul talks about the fact that he was the worst of sinners. Okay, I think it's the 15th chapter of 1 Corinthians, where he talks about I'm the worst apostle because I was the worst of sinners. I killed the Christians. Okay? Mea culpa. Paul pulls no bones about it, okay? But then when we move on to Ephesians, okay? When we move on to Ephesians, 5th chapter, the 2nd verse. Let me correct that, because I just looked down and saw I was wrong in the 2nd chapter, the 4th verse. We see what I consider 2 of the most, maybe the most important words in the entire Bible, okay? And here are the words, but God. Remember, Paul's writing this. He just said he was the worst of sinners. Then he gets to Ephesians and he says those 2 words, which to all of us who believe in the redemptive power of salvation are just vitally important. But God. And they're followed with, but God, in his loving mercy, brought us together. Okay? But God. Well, I think in America right now we're at a but God moment. Okay? Because I think that God, in his loving mercy, can bring us together to rescue us from this fascist Biden regime takeover. Okay? Make no mistake, this is a fascist takeover. And God can rescue us, but God can rescue us. Okay? I think, if I'm giving you my personal opinion, we need to turn this country's heart back to him. Okay? That's pretty important. We need to tell the mainstream denominational churches, look, either start preaching the gospel and give an altar call occasionally for God's sake, that's your job, or close your doors and let your people to go to somewhere that will give altar calls and help people understand you must be born again. I mean, that's the gospel. You know? If you're not going to do that, don't pretend you're a church. All right? So that's important. So for number one, we have to turn our hearts back to God. But when we do, that's when we're going to find out that things can be horrible in this country, and they are right now. But God is prepared to once again rescue America from spiritual wickedness in high places, which is what we have, isn't it? It's what we have, isn't it? The worst possible spiritual wickedness. Flying the transgender mutilate the children flag in the portico of the White House on their transgender recognition day. That's blasphemous. That's blasphemous, okay? Biden and his wife and Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, all these people telling us abortion is God's will. That's blasphemous. The Bible says God won't be mocked. That's mocking. But he can bring us back from that. But God can bring us back from that. And I told you I was going to give a little formula for what we need to do to come back from that. Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'd like you to hold these things up in prayer and then get active in bringing them about. You remember in John Kennedy's inaugural address, he said, but on this earth, God's work must truly be our own. Okay? Bishop Sheen, when I was a kid, some of you remember him, it used to be on every night in America. Yeah, back then, when I was a kid, yeah, that's how religious this country was, how spiritual. Bishop Sheen used to say, pray as if everything depends upon God. Act as if everything depends upon you. You. Okay? So come on over to conservativericepack.com and join us, because we're doing three things that I think are going to help God take back this country and help us redeem America and redeem our freedom, okay, from fascism. Number one, creating a massive new conservative podcast network. Now, I'm talking about a podcast network that's going to rival Fox, CNN, everybody out there. It's not just going to be news. It will be that. It'll be political commentary. It'll also be religion. It'll be sports. It'll be entertainment, literature, everything right across the board. So when you want to turn somewhere for values-oriented entertainment, news and entertainment, the Conservative Podcast Network, TribuNet, is going to be it, okay? It's going to be it, with the top people. Not from inside the Beltway. We don't need to hear any more inside the Beltway blather, okay? There are tremendous podcasters outside the Beltway. I've mentioned them before. The Cartier family, Officer Tatum. Look outside the Beltway. Megyn Kelly's podcast is fantastic. Glenn Beck's. All these need to be brought in under one umbrella. The Duran, okay. Let's bring them all in under one umbrella. The woman who just won the lawsuit, I'm sorry, I can't think of her name right now, the black woman against ESPN, should head up the sports network. Look, it'll be a genuine sports network for those of us who love sports, but we don't need to hear LeBron James interviewed and talk about a racist society, just be a racist society. go somewhere else. We want to talk to people who are positive and upbeat, and who who treasure traditional American values, and who help encourage our young people. If these athletes are going to be the role models and be good role models, and we'll have you on, and we'll cover the sports like nobody else. Look, I can get Mike Warren, the greatest sports handicapper in history, to have his own podcast. And believe me, when he gives you the analysis of what's going to happen that coming Sunday, you can bet on it, literally. Now, some of you are saying, well, that's sinful. I know, but we all have our foibles. I don't gamble, but I'm saying for those who do. But right across the board. So that's number one, Conservative Podcast Network. Number two, we're dumping the Inside the Beltway Conservative Inc. organizations. Folks, some of those have hundreds of millions of dollars in their account. I don't know what they're doing with the money, why they're hoarding it, but they should be spending it to help fight the good fight, help the guys in the Gulag, the guys and the girls in the Gulag in Washington because of the phony insurrection charges. The pro-lifers, fight the good fight. Go out there and spend some of the couple $100 million you got, leading, helping defend Trump, ending the assault on our freedom of speech. Right across the board, they're not doing it. They got these little piddly things they'll write to you about to raise money on. This is so important. If they ain't fighting fascism, they're fighting the wrong battles, okay? And they should be open about what they're doing. So we're moving it outside the Beltway, where real Americans are and where the real conservative movement is. Heartland America, what Conservative Inc. Inside the Beltway people consider flyover America. Well, they're having their soirees and parties with each other. Their fest that they have continually, where they pay each other to speak. Enough of that, okay? We're at war. Let's fight like warriors, okay? So moving it outside the Beltway, where real conservative leadership is. And number three, we need to remove every leader of the Republican Party. Every one of them. McCarthy, McConnell, Ronna McDaniel. Thank God in heaven Mitt Romney's leaving. Hey, Mitt, take your niece, Ronna McDaniel, with you from the RNC, okay? So there's the three. There's the big three. 1, 2, 3. We're going to fight those battles. We're going to win those battles. The other side thinks that it's on a roll now, and it is. It is. But God can turn that tide. I believe he's going to do it. He expects us to get in there, fight the good fight, become the warriors, become the watchmen and the warriors on the walls of world of freedom. So let's do this thing.